Zuzanna Fuchs, Professor Zuzanna Fuchs PhD in Linguistics from Harvard and Director of a research lab in linguistic bilingual processing at USC. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to nerd out with you today. You came through an amazing recommendation.
Oh, boy.
Through Emma. Emma, I was very fascinated with. I know she is one of the only females on a team of quantum computing experts innovating the future at Google. Hopefully
Amazon.
we'll...
Yeah.
Or Amazon?
Oh, no, I was going to say
said...
Emma's an absolute rock star.
Oh, yeah, Emma. Okay.
Yeah.
Emma, I was like, oh, did she change? I thought she was at Google.
Nope,
yeah,
you're right.
Fingers crossed she'll come on eventually. But yeah, I'm very fascinated. You've had a very interesting career journey, and you have a very niche focus that you're working on. Tell me more about that.
Yes. So I'm a linguist, and I work specifically in language processing. And like most researchers, I have like a teeny tiny little slice of the pie that I work on. My slice of the pie is bilinguals and bilingual language processing.
How did you find that specific focus?
Well, I was raised bilingual, and so there was always this kind of awareness that that's an interesting thing. And then in college, I found out you can actually study that's a science. And I think that was incredibly exciting to me that I could actually put together this intuition with scientific investigation.
And what is your end game? Like, why study, bilingual sciences? What are you going to do with it? We're in an era where people are looking at the future of AI and questioning, should we even learn another language? Like, soon we may have, glasses or earpieces or technologies that will translate in real time. Like, what's the purpose?
Well, I think you can come at it from a couple of angles. The way I think about it these days, the U.S. is a specific case where we talk about bilingualism as that like other version of being that some of us decide to attain, some of us don't. But the truth is that in most of the world, people are bilingual, trilingual, and more. And so if what we want to do is understand how humans process language, and we want machines to be able to mimic that, then actually if we want machines to mimic just monolinguals, they're mimicking a tiny slice of the human population. And if we understand bilingual language processing, we're going to do a lot better job in understanding how to make the machines match what humans can do.
So is your focus developing this to develop technology, or are you focused on helping more human beings become bilingual, or bilingual human beings achieve some other threshold, or all of the above? How do you think about it?
Kind of none of the above, actually. So I do primary research. So I do the kind of research that in and of itself is probably not going to immediately help anybody. But part of my job and part of the next step, once I get tenure, is to talk to the people who can then translate that research to concrete computational tools or to educational materials. Me on my own, when I think about doing my research, I do hope that it helps bilingual people who participate in my experiments learn a little something about themselves, and give them some kind of validation of, being bilingual is interesting and exciting in and of itself, and maybe give them motivation to keep going. But that's as far as my immediate research will actually go until I team up with the right people.
Interesting. Why is tenure so important in this process?
So tenure, once you have tenure, you are basically employed for life, right? Until you have tenure, you basically have to hustle to publish a lot, publish quickly, and publish stuff that's going to be considered impactful in your field among researchers in your field.
So differently. So that's terrifying to me, but it's amazing what you've been able to achieve and to have that foresight to know what to do at the right time. And I'm curious how the research you're doing right now, what is the delta between what you're doing right now and the research you're going to do when you have that tenure and you can do whatever you want?
That's a great question. I think what I'm doing right now, I am excited about, but there are certain projects that I have kind of put on the back burner, the we'll do this in a couple of years that are not unrelated. It's not like I'm going to get tenure and like 180 and do something totally different, but they are going to be more applied, working with language teachers or working with people who do computational linguistics, NLP, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah. So they will be in the general domain of what I do, bilingualism, language processing, but connecting to points that I can't really connect to right now and still be compelling to the people assessing my dossier.
Interesting. So if, like, just thinking about your legacy, if the world could remember only one contribution, what would that be? Like, what would just inspire you? Like, what makes you feel alive? What is that fire? Like, if there's one thing that you know you could add that would change people's minds and impact the world forever, what would that look like?
This feels like a almost a job interview question.
It's like a game show.
Yes, yeah.
You gotta push the right button.
I think. Wow. Okay. Let me figure out how to phrase this. If I get one legacy or one contribution. So there's a certain type of bilingual that some people are, like me, where you grow up speaking a language with your parents at home. And in adulthood, English is way easier, right? But you still have that knowledge of that language from home. And because of shifting demographics, because of immigration, there's so many people in the US that feel that way about their language. Their home language, what we call their heritage language, but often feel a lot of insecurity around that. And so if at the end of all of this, what I've contributed is that heritage speakers feel like they're really valued as bilinguals, that they are bilinguals, I'll be happy.
Interesting. Do you think that looks like a social movement that's like predicated on the foundation of your research?
I think social movement is probably a bit too strong of a statement. Like, I don't think a movement needs to happen, right? I think it's really just awareness and how we talk about things.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's really interesting. It seems like there's a lot of thought going into navigating your career. You're very career-oriented. I'm curious, are there other facets to you that you really intentionally cultivate? Hobbies, different areas of study, fitness, wellness? What does that look like?
Yeah, quite a few of those things. You can tell me which one you want me to talk more about. But fitness, absolutely, for various reasons. But also playing piano. I started learning a musical instrument as an adult.
Nice.
2020. Yeah, I think
COVID hobby.
But something I'd been dreaming about actually for years. And it wasn't until I started my tenure track job, my career got to a place where I had some extra time that I was like, I'm going to let myself do this. I'm going to give myself time to do it. Mental health, obviously. Cooking. I love cooking.
What's your specialty?
I don't know if I have a specialty.
Excite my imagination.
Lots of roasted vegetables with lots of cumin, coriander, and then yogurt-based sauces with some spices and some lemon.
Little Indian flavors in the mix?
Yeah.
Little Mediterranean or like
That's
Moroccan?
the right area. Yeah. Moroccan was the word I wasn't going to say, but yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. My mom, she went through a French phase when I was a child. She watched Julie and Julia and fell in love. And all of a sudden, there's beef bourguignon on the table. There's like all these different sauces. And oh my goodness, I was in heaven.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
I was in heaven.
My guilty pleasure is just pastries. Because I can cook. I have now learned how to cook. In grad school, I learned how to cook. But I know I cannot make a pastry. I've even taken like pastry cooking classes. It's an insanely complex process. Shout out to anybody who can make pastries because I cannot. So I will fork over the $8 for a pastry in LA because I'm like, I can't do that. I will pay you. Like,
that's
absolutely.
Awesome. $8 sounds like a deal in LA. Where are you getting these pastries?
Yeah, I have my favorite spots in Santa Monica.
I was gonna say, out here you spend like, $15 on some like water with lemon and maple syrup and it's like you're getting a pastry for $8. Like you got the
I've also spent the $15 on the pastries. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite guilty pleasure. So fun fact, I quit eating cane sugar when I was 23.
Oh, wow.
Because I actually had addictive behaviors with it. I would always crave it and want like sweet drinks or desserts. And it reprogrammed my brain. It was amazing. But now that I've had so much space from it, I can every so often indulge in gourmet desserts. And my favorite vice that I only like to indulge in if I'm in Paris, French macarons.
Yes.
And there's nothing more that, okay, what feels like the ultimate guilty pleasure is like going to Pierre Hermé and just all the flavors, all the colors. It's just like, it's beautiful. And normally I would feel disgusted, like eating something blue or pink or orange, but like, reading it's
blue
like,
is not meant to be eaten.
Like it's just so beautiful. It's like art and the texture is perfect. And it's crazy. It's like $60 for 12 or it's something absurd, but it just feels like an indulgence that's worth it. Totally. Especially because there isn't that brand here in the States. But
it's funny that you mentioned that because I actually just gave up desserts yesterday for a month.
Wow.
It was just, there was a week where I felt like I had a dessert every day of the week. There's always reason to, like somebody brought some into the department, whatever. And I had dessert every day for a week. And I was starting to wonder, I was like, am I having some kind of unhealthy tendency where I can't say no to the cookie that's, been offered or whatever? And simultaneously, an article came out. I was like, here are the ways that sugar affects your health. And I was like, all right, maybe I need to just kind of reset, step away for a month and then come back to it with like a little bit more balance.
Absolutely. I had this realization at a time where I was working for Benefit Cosmetics, and there are always cookies in the office and sweets. And I was just like, I'd just code at my desk and nerd out and like, oh, cookie, munch, munch. Oh, a little cake, munch, munch. And then I realized that after a few weeks of this, I realized like I noticed this pattern in my life. Actually, the awareness came probably a month and a half into this kind of mindless sugar intake behavior cycle, where I noticed a lot of things in my reality were having a spike and a crash trajectory. And I noticed at work, like I would nap a lot in the pregnancy room. Yeah, that was like kind of my mischievous side. But I would like have my energy spike, get a bunch done, and then go nap in the pregnancy room and have that crash. And then I also noticed like in my dating life, like I'd have crushes, like I'd have a crush on someone and there'd be all this buildup and all this excitement and like, ooh, like something's gonna happen, like we're gonna like, date, or like there's gonna be that moment, that inflection point, and then boom, suddenly like they're gone, interested in someone else. Like the energy just fizzled out. Also too, with like some deals I was working on and like side projects, like all this buildup, and I got really curious. I'm like, why is this spike and crash energy in all these different areas of my life? And I realized that my body, my nervous system was on that cycle all the time. And it just made me interested, like if this is my vehicle for navigating life, and my vehicle, it's like if you're driving a car down a certain path every single day, then it makes sense that like your perspective would be reflective of that path you're driving it on. And I realized I saw that in all these areas. And I think quitting sugar and re-regulating my energy to where it was much more stable and where I don't need dependencies and my mood is stable, I noticed that stability naturally reflect through other areas of my life as well.
That's great. Yeah, I can relate to some of the spikes and fall-offs for sure. I feel that at work a lot. So check back in a month to see how I'm feeling.
I'm curious.
One day down and like 30 to go, but I'm pretty optimistic.
Oh, just wait till the withdrawals hit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I once did this, my first 10-day silent meditation that I did. I spent the whole time fantasizing about desserts. I kid you not. It was horrible. I was like, what is wrong with me? Like,
oh no.
I feel like it's not clear how comfortable one gets with certain things until you're stripped of it and pressure cooked to like fully release that dependency in a heightened sense of time, like cold turkey. And then it's like, wow, like
Yeah, for me, the hardest thing I think is going to be that. So I run a lab at USC, and we have these weekly meetings. And every week, by request of the students, every week, some student brings snacks, and they're almost always sweet. And many of them live in different parts of LA. So like yesterday, somebody bought Portos. And I was like, wow, this is day one. And they're really, really testing me with all these like Portos goodies. And I was okay. But it's a weekly meeting. So,
nice.
You know. Yeah.
Good. You gotta have that mental toughness.
Yes.
That's awesome. So does fitness play a role in like helping you kind of make these lifestyle changes? Like, I'd love to continually excavate like the way you round yourself out.
Yeah. Fitness serves a couple of roles in my life, I think. One is mental health related. Another is just actually health related. There's some not great family history, I think, in terms of various health issues. My brother texted me like 6 months ago. He was like, hey, got my blood work, had elevated cholesterol. They said it's fine unless we have bad family history. So I think we're okay. And I was like, Adam, we have terrible family history of heart health. Please start working out. And for the record, he did. But I've also had elevated cholesterol in the past. So I've been, fitness plays a large role in just kind of keeping all those things at bay, diabetes in the family and all that stuff. So that's a big part of it. And also actually like maintaining some of my friendships. Like I have 2 friends with whom I go to kind of alternating yoga classes, and we have a coffee after or just catch up. We're all so busy. You know, those Venn diagrams in like
choose 2 out of 3.
Yes, choose 2 out of 3. Exactly. Right. Like what is it? Friends, career, or love. Okay. So for me, if I can squeeze fitness and friends into the same bubble, like nice. I can maintain, my likelihood of maybe having all 3 is nice. A little higher. So
interesting. Yeah, you mentioned when we were chatting earlier privately that female friendships have played such a fundamental role in your life. And I'm very curious to learn more. I feel like personally, I've always had more male support. Like I'm very close with my mom, but I grew up with a brother. I also had not so great experiences with women. I think my first like genuine healthy friendship that I had was in college. And I grew up in like just different cultures. So a lot of the women in those cultures, like I was like bullied for religious purposes. I was bullied for like my size, being petite. Like there's a lot that I went through. So like the warmth and the connection with women came later in life, but after I'd already developed like an intense amount of comfortability, just like, with guy friends, like I've always had a lot of comfortability there. And so I'm curious for you, I'd love to learn like how female friendships have been this really stabilizing foundation for you and why you think they've left such an impact versus like some of the ones with men in your life.
Yeah, they've been incredibly important for me in a number of ways. I've had some close friends, 2 or 3 close friends since like middle school. And also had friends that came later along the way. But I'd say these days, the really important roles that they play are, one is just kind of talking about what it means to be a woman, even just at the biological, anatomical level. Like really having somebody that you can talk to about, oh yeah, you have these issues too? Yeah. How was getting your IUD in? Are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We've touched on all sorts of the last girl I interviewed was telling me about her robot boyfriend sex triangle that she had in mind for her like creative project.
Okay, so I think IUDs are tame. We're good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm boring by comparison.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be hard to focus on what I want. I have a number of female friends who are also tenure track professors, and there's some sharing of experiences, right? The good and the bad. And also down to things like, what do you wear to class? Do you think I can wear this to campus this week? Like, does this seem work appropriate? It's down to that level, you know?
Interesting. Do you feel like you spend a lot of time thinking about how to be a woman in a male-dominated field?
Yes. I do. And I think about it partly from the perspective of thinking about how I present to my colleagues who are predominantly male. At USC currently, there are 4 with a 5th coming. He's starting in January, junior tenure track faculty in linguistics, of whom I am the only woman.
Wow.
Right? So I do think about that a lot. And then I also think about that in terms of how I present to the students, right? Because the students tend to have expectations about, you know, a young female professor, she's probably going to be chill, or she's probably going to be an easy grader, or I can one thing that people say is that female professors tend to do a lot more emotional labor. Like if I talk to my male colleagues, the number of students crying in their office this year that has happened is put together between the 3 of them is lower than it's been for me this semester as a woman.
People can just show you what's going on in their emotional, mental health spheres. They feel more open to that.
Yeah. And, you know, for the record, I care deeply about my students, and I'm happy that they feel like they can come talk to me. I'm glad that they think of me as somebody that they can trust. On the other hand, it's exhausting, right? It's so tiring.
Can I ask you a vulnerable, edgy question?
Sure, yeah.
Cool. I'm curious if you've been the subject of anyone's fantasies.
Oh God. I don't know. Well, okay. I had when I was an undergrad, I had a secret admirer. I was a TA as an undergrad.
Nice. And
I had I don't know if nice. Oh God, this was so awkward. I had an office. A shared office. And I got, this is so not fair. I got a letter slipped under my door addressed to me. It was a poem. It was a poem that was like kind of mortifying. Like, by the end of it, it was like, it was like, I've observed you. This is like 2012, 2013 we're talking. This is like a while ago. Yeah. And it's like ingrained in my memory. I was like, by the end of the poem was like, soon I will reveal my great work to you. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? And then the person, nothing else happened. Like, a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, I get a Facebook message from a guy who was a student in my class that year. I was his TA the year that he sent me this letter. And he messages me. He's like, hey, you were probably wondering who sent you that letter some years ago. It was me. And I was like, oh, okay, that's nice. And he was like, yeah, you know, I never followed up because I heard you were dating somebody. And I was like, okay, that's very nice. You know, I'm like still Facebook chatting this guy. Like, oh my God. And then the crazy thing is I was on vacation in Rome with my boyfriend at a bar. And I see somebody, I went to Columbia for undergrad. And my boyfriend at the time, different boyfriend now, but boyfriend at the time, we're having like a beer in Rome. And I see somebody wearing a Columbia shirt. And I'm like, what are the odds? Like, oh, hey, you know. And then I look and it's that guy.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm choosing to believe this was the craziest coincidence in the world because I don't particularly want to think about the alternative. But yes, that's
now I'm kind of curious. Like, was the poem a cryptic message that implied maybe he would stalk you and show up in Rome a few years later just to watch you and your boyfriend from a distance? Like if observe was like already a term used in the poem, it's just kind of like, in what other ways are you observing?
I know. I don't remember anything cryptic other than soon I will reveal my great work or something. I don't exactly remember the words at the end. But yeah, that was.
If I have a ton of views on this one podcast in a very short amount of time from the same source, I'm gonna be like, I wonder.
Oh no. Well, okay, now you know. Yeah. Don't send letters like that to your TA.
Yeah, no, that's really funny. I actually had a crush on my TA in calculus at North Carolina, and yeah, I don't know. Like, I didn't really like hit on him. I would just look.
Good. Crushes are fine. I would just touch.
I would just look hot in office hours and ask like very tame questions, and I was kind of
learned a lot about calculus.
Yeah, I was kind of shy. I had a lot of statements in my mind of like cheesy like things to say. Like I wonder what that equation between you and I would look like. Yeah, no. The more bold sides of me came out later. Yeah.
Okay, well, probably for the best. Yeah. These days, universities have very strict rules around like TA-student relationship, which I think is a good thing.
But, yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious how love plays a role in your life now.
So I do have a boyfriend now. He's been my partner for almost 6 years, which is pretty crazy.
You're in forever person territory.
I know, which is pretty wild, especially once you like go through the pandemic with someone and a couple of moves and long distance.
A few life crises, and that seals the deal.
Definitely a few life crises, yes. So yeah, he and I live together here in LA. We were apart for 2 years while I was at the University of Iowa, which was kind of my pit stop before I made it to USC in LA. I spent 2 years at the University of Iowa. That was my first tenure track job. And he is so incredibly supportive. There are, we joke about the life crises, but I've had some crises, and I don't think that I would have made it through. I think I would have made it through a little bit less okay without him.
Any hindsight's 2020 fun ones, or are they all like kind of in
crises?
Dark?
Oh, any fun ones? Not off the top of my head, I don't think.
Well, like, any ones that you can look back on and be like, oh, that seemed like very intense then, but actually that was quite constructive now that I...
Oh, are you talking about fights between the two of us?
No,
my own crises
he's helped you through.
I mean, being on the job market, okay, I think many of the crises that in retrospect I look back on, I'm like, okay, that was fine, are whenever I've had to make like what felt to me like really big decisions. Like, oh, this feels so high stakes right now. I'm going to piss people off no matter what I do. And he's always been really good at being like, prioritize yourself. I think you can give people a little bit more credit than you're currently giving them. Most reasonable people will understand that you're making a decision that's right for you, not trying to tell half of the people in your life, fuck off.
Yeah.
Right? And so that has been really helpful. It's really helped me sometimes make hard decisions. I'm not a person who likes to close doors, and whenever I have a big decision, it feels like I have to close one door. I can't keep both of them open. That's when I get the most stressed out, and so he's really helped me through that.
Yeah. One of my favorite phrases that came to my attention this summer that one of my friends said that I was like, this is so good. The most successful people make the most mistakes. And that, like, letting that sink in and realizing actually, like a lot, like think about Donald Trump. He's like done crazy stuff in his career. He's a lot of haters. He's a lot of fans. Like, he's a very controversial figure, but he's made a lot of mistakes. And he's also like, had a lot of high stakes situations. He's also, had a lot of, successes, and everything is like relative, but arguably, he's definitely like, his story is like insane, and he makes mistakes constantly. Like he's constantly just like saying stuff and like, making people hate him and other people love him. Like, it's just fascinating. And when I realized, and I looked into the world and I looked at a lot of, the people positioned very high level in society, and I looked at a lot of the people who have had crazy deltas in their careers, I was like, actually, yeah, they've embraced the iterative process of chaos and change. And they've also allowed their nervous system to embrace that feedback loop of realizing they've failed or they've pissed this person off or they did this thing wrong over there. And like, they're okay with it. And the fact that they can metabolize it more efficiently allows them to be more effective. And that efficiency leads more towards success.
Yeah. You know what this made me think of is, do you watch Seth Meyers at all?
I don't.
Okay. So Seth Meyers that does, he has, oh God, I'm going to butcher it. It's one of those like late night shows, super late night shows. I forget which one. But every once in a while he does this thing where he like does a review of his writers. And what he says is the writers write tons and tons and tons and tons of jokes, only for a few of them to be the ones that make it to screen. And a lot of what they write is actually just really bad, like actually really bad. And what he does then is he like reads out loud some of the really bad jokes that they submitted. And the reason I really like that is because so much of the time we just see the successful part of people, right? And we all have this intuition that like, yeah, you have to make a ton of mistakes to like get to the successful part, but we don't talk about it as much. Yeah. Right. And this is just this like weird part of social media that I've latched onto as like my reminder of like, you have to write a lot of really bad content before you get the content that's really good, right? Either because it's part of the process, it's part of kind of getting out the bad ideas, or because sometimes you just have to, I don't know, make a word count or make the assignment. And not everything you produce has to be the best thing ever, right? Sometimes you can produce something that's 75%.
So true. I'm curious if there's been any female mentors in your journey that have helped you evolve rapidly.
Yeah, my PhD advisor is a really big one. She was the first person really in my life who like told me I wasn't good at something in a very constructive way.
What'd she say?
So after my first year of my PhD, she sat me down and she was like, Zuzanna, you're a good scientist. You're a terrible writer. And I was like, oh my God, like you don't want to hear that at the start of your first year, right? That's actually quite scary.
It's kind of bold. Like she didn't like warm you up at all for it. She's just like, here, like.
She's always been like that. That's just her personality. So you're correct. She did not warm me up. But immediately after that, she started talking about ways that we can work on it. Right? She was like, I'm going to put you on this project so that you can start writing, and then I will look at your drafts and give you feedback so that you can develop this part of your profile. Because to be a successful scientist, you have to be very good at writing. You have to write down your ideas and communicate them to most people in written form. And so you can be brilliant, but if you're not a great writer, things aren't going to go great. And so I really, really appreciate that she probably could have softened me up to it, right? She could have been like, I don't know, compliment sandwich or something, right? She did half of that. But she really did push me to develop very quickly and to not be afraid, honestly, to sometimes hear negative feedback. I think that's really big, right? Because I think most of us who are high achievers kind of through high school, college, et cetera, just aren't really used to seeing that kind of thing. Yeah. So I owe her a lot.
That's interesting. Do you mentor young women? Like, how do you see your role playing out to help other women elevate to greater places of power within your niche and the world?
Yeah. I have PhD students, which is like I advise PhD students, which I have to say is bizarre to me. Like I'm 33. I feel like I have barely any advice to give anybody, right?
Are they like around your age?
One of them, we haven't explicitly said how old each of us is, but I think she may be like 28 or 29. Nice. Certainly when I first started as a tenure track professor, I had students my age or older, which is weird, right? but yeah, I have PhD advisees who are female, and they, I help them make their way through academic decisions, but we also talk a lot about life decisions, right? You were saying earlier that, committing to doing something for 6 years and then another 6 years is horrifying, right? Yeah. And so I think an important part of what I do is to talk to them and say, does this make sense for you? Because if you decide it doesn't, that's also okay, right? Like this isn't for everybody. Recently, actually, we talked about the fact that they were really grateful that we had invited a particular speaker to campus who was not only a female professor, but also a female professor with kids. Because it just so happens that both I and one of my female colleagues in my department, who's senior faculty, we don't have children. And these students are trying to figure out if that's part of what they want to do or not, and how that affects their career. And so we had brought in this
topic.
Yeah, right. So we had invited this researcher to give a talk on her work, who's a fantastic researcher and also happens to be female and also happens to have kids. And the students were like, had the opportunity to have lunch with her, and they were like, that was really useful. It was really great to be able to talk to her because we can talk to you guys all the time, and she has a perspective that we needed.
I think this is a fascinating subject. I've thought about it personally because I have looked at the landscape. Obviously, I'm in tech and finance, or I was in tech, now I'm in finance. But I looked at the landscape of high-performing women in my niches and evaluated, who are these women? Like, what are their traits? What are the patterns? Like, do they find love? Do they have kids? And I know so many women who prioritize their career that ended up just not like meeting the guy, phasing out of their fertility window. Some, have it all, but that's a much smaller, few. And then also too, just seeing some of the qualities in these women. Like, there are a lot of women who have the reputation of being very type A, very intense, very masculine in their leadership styles. And honestly, it kind of scared me. I was like, I am a woman that wants to have it all. I want to be successful in business. I want to impact the world. I want to be in love. I want to be sensual. I want to be feminine. I want to have kids. I want to have time and travel. Like, it's just so difficult. Like, back to that choose to. It's just so difficult. Like, you have to be really clever and very stealthy to architect the lifestyle where you can even, have like a few of the things on that list, And I think it's really interesting to explore because I think there's a lot of young women right now who are faced with, what do I do? Do I go make money with my intellect? Do I get on Instagram and become like Instagram model, or do OnlyFans and make like enough money over, a few short years, invest it, and then I have the rest of my life to do what I want and I can go do whatever I want from there. And I think that there's a lot of women who are actually intimidated by seeing the high performers and realizing the sacrifices they've made and not necessarily relating to elements of those female leaders. And then that alienates them from wanting to walk that path. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, and like what you think that antidote is to attract more women into these challenging places of like really contributing with their intellect, or, walking these paths where like maybe you do realize like it is kids or it is fully performing in this career.
Yeah. This is a hard topic, right?
It is.
I think one of the things I personally struggle with, two things that I want to mention. First, I think going to grad school has delayed a lot of this thinking for me, right? Because grad school feels kind of like delaying adulthood, but then all of a sudden you're 28 and you're like, whoa, wait, hold on. I should think about this now, and I have kind of less time than everybody else, right? Because I just didn't think about it. I put it on pause until grad school is over. And so in some ways, I kind of feel like my window to think about it is shortened. I also, I really relate to this notion of kind of looking up, at least time-wise, and feeling like, the only models that we see that are like not role models. The only examples that we see really and social media are like one or the other, right? You're either super high powered, and if you watch a movie, probably that high powered woman just has nannies and never talks to her children, right? That's kind of like the archetype in one part of the social media sphere. And then on the other side, it's like, or you can stay home and choose to be a mom, and that's totally fine. And we're at a place in society where we also say like, that is another option, right? But I feel like we don't get to talk a lot about how exactly do we do the in-between option, right? Like how exactly do you make it work to do both of those things, right? To if you want to have kids and a career and connect with your kids, I have friends who are trying to do it now. And I think they are incredible. I am watching both as a supportive friend and also like, okay, what are they doing? Like taking notes. Like, what are the resources that they need? How much do they plan ahead? You know,
how much money do they need?
How much money do they need? Literally. Well, and then there's things that you actually just truly cannot predict, like postpartum depression. Like, you don't know if that's gonna be you, right?
I heard that's intense.
Yes, I have a friend going through that right now, and it is very intense, right? And she's somebody who wanted to be a mom so badly. She was so excited. And she still is. She absolutely adores her child, but she is having very serious mental health struggles.
Crazy.
Yeah. So there's things you can plan for, and then there's things you can't plan for, which makes this whole thing even harder, right? You don't know how your body's going to react, how your chemistry is going to react.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it sounds like kids is something that may be a possibility for you, but right now you're letting it simmer.
Yeah. So
tenure first, right?
Yes, exactly.
But then does that mean you have to freeze your eggs because you'll already be 35?
So that's exactly, yes.
Would
so
you do
that is, sorry?
Surrogacy?
Probably not surrogacy, but I am planning on freezing my eggs. So I'll be doing that early next calendar year. So like January, February, March. In order to just give myself more time to figure out what it is that I want, right? So I said that grad school kind of feels like it shortened my window. I think by freezing my eggs, I can re-extend my window to some extent.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm curious, what would some of the listeners be surprised to know about you?
I have a year-long streak in Swahili on Duolingo.
Hey.
Very still like language nerd related. But yes, I've been doing it for a year. In 2013, I was at the Met Gala.
Nice.
Not as a attendant in full capacity, but in college, I told you I like to open more doors than close them.
Nice.
In college, I applied for and was part of what's called the college group at the Met. I don't know if it exists still. Long story short, I had intern status at the Met. They kind of rented me out to Vogue for the night to help with some of the logistics. And Vogue let us kind of hang out at the party for the last part of it, like at the Temple of Dendur. So that was, I peaked in 2013. That was it. I peaked. Tenure. I peaked at the Met Gala.
I love that. I'm curious, which celebrity was your favorite?
Oh my God, I stepped on Blake Lively's dress. She was
She's like, excuse me?
No, she was actually very nice about it. So points for that. I think for that reason she may have been my favorite.
Nice.
Also still like sisterhood. This is 2013, so like Gossip Girl era, right? So I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I stepped on her dress. And also she was very, very gracious about it.
I think she was one of my first girl crushes. And I used to like wonder, do I am I attracted to women? And like it's funny, as I've gotten older, I realize like I'm way less bi than I thought I was. But Blake Lively and Savages, like it sparked that question in me. Like that movie, like seeing two like really attractive men of different kinds like fight over her and just like I was like, wow, like I'd fight over her too.
Yeah. I would probably fight over Blake Lively. I always wanted to be more Serena van der Woodsen, but was definitely, if I think about it, I was definitely much more, and I'm blanking on her name. Did you watch Gossip Girl?
I just know him as the blonde and the brunette.
Okay, so I wanted to be the blonde. I was the brunette, if we think Leighton Meester's character, much more. But she just always had this like effortlessness about her. And I feel like if you want to talk about femininity, I never could like nail the like effortless thing, you know? That's just not, I aspired, but couldn't quite get it there.
Do you view yourself more as kind of tomboy, down to earth vibes? How do you think about yourself in that way?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say tomboy, but definitely more down to earth.
When do you feel your femininity the most?
That's a great question.
Whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
Not boxing it into stereotypes, but whatever it means to you.
Yeah. There are certain outfits. Okay, honestly, I think it's when I show off my cleavage. If I have to be really honest, I think it's like cleavage and waist. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling very feminine today. The other thing that makes me feel very feminine recently is reading romance novels. Have you been reading romance novels? This is like a thing that's happening right now. I feel like a lot of people are into them.
I have in the past. Yeah.
Okay.
I have.
So I feel like, again, high achiever context. I feel like I always thought of reading as a thing that you need to do for like intellectual purposes. And I really enjoy nonfiction. There's a lot of like literary work that I read that I really enjoy. But at some point, somebody handed me Fourth Wing. And I was like, oh, I can also read and have a ton of fun, right? And like really read about like women being women and sexual desire and all that stuff. And that just like unlocked something for me in terms of like, oh, this is a way that I can have a great time. It's something that I already do. I already like reading, but it has this like dimension to it that I hadn't really allowed myself to get into before.
That's really interesting. I'm tempted to tell you a secret.
Yeah, okay.
So between you and I, I'm low-key very talented at writing erotic stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to tell, like, do you have like a plot line that you've actually written? I mean, plot line loosely construed here.
It's more that, so I dated this guy that he thought it was my ex thought it was hot that maybe I would have confessions of experiences that I had that maybe he like didn't know about.
Okay.
So I'd write these like incredibly graphic stories for him. To like inspire this like fantasy for him.
Okay. So did he then try to like reenact stuff? Like what was the outcome of this?
That's like a very good. Honestly, I think that man, he struck gold with me because that was like the first real relationship of my 20s. So I was like very there's just like a lot of things that he like really enjoyed and liked, and I leaned into them, and I was like very devotional. And so I think that he definitely like got to benefit from them. And I think it was more just thinking about me as different archetypes. Like I think that for some guys, like maybe they like role play or they like seeing their girl dress up in different ways and be different versions of herself. I think the stories really sparked that for him, where he imagined me as these different versions. And that was really exciting because it's almost like he got like multiple girls in one.
Okay. Do you feel like you learned anything about communicating your needs to your partner in this way?
That's interesting. I felt like I learned a lot about distilling what I found hot in sexual experiences through writing erotic stories, and also just like the graphic details and getting into like building the storyline and like the nuances of it. Like I felt like I could really transform myself and bring someone there. And actually, this summer I had this amazing experience. I had the most amazing summer traveling Europe.
Okay.
And on one of my flights, I think I was probably flying from France to Spain. I had my AirPods in. I was listening to this French song. It's a beautiful song. I'll probably link it so you guys can listen to it. And I looped it, and I just wrote this full erotic story of being in this like gorgeous place with this view. It's like a hotel room where you're just like overlooking these like massive mountains, like maybe somewhere in Switzerland where like they're just these like pinnacle mountains, and the clouds kind of as I said in the story, like drift at their waist. And I painted just this full picture of like the contrast of like the fire and like it's snowing outside. And then at the end of the story, like I took through the full process, and at the end of the story there was this moment where the snow blew in through the open window and just like covered the floor in like a thin layer. And obviously that was like in tandem with kind of the ending of the erotic moment. And the question was that I left the reader, the listener with was, are we an expression of nature, or is nature an expression of us?
Ooh. What's your own take on that?
I'm very inspired by nature, and I feel myself more aroused when I spend more time in nature.
Oh, okay.
How about you?
How do I answer the question? Or
does nature inspire you? Oh. Does nature inspire your primal sides?
I don't know the answer to that question, actually. I think I'm only just starting to explore nature, to be honest, because I love traveling. I absolutely love, I know that's strange, but I love traveling. But I feel like for many, many years, my travel is always to cities. And only recently have I started doing the like see a city and then like go out into nature and spend time in nature. So I don't know about awakening anything primal in me, but definitely there's like a sense of awe at how much diversity there is in what nature can do that I'm only just scratching the surface of, like only getting a little sample. I can tell that there's like so much world out there, and I have some like bucket list places that I really want to go that are like nature. Alaska's high up there. The Galapagos has always been kind of on my bucket list for both nature and science nerdy reasons, right?
Tell me about that.
Oh, Darwin, right? I mean, the whole idea that that's where evolution was something that he came up with.
The birthplace of evolution.
That's right. Yeah. So that's like definitely high up on my list. This year I checked off safari, which was incredible. And then last year I checked off Australia, both the Great Barrier Reef and going into the outback. Wow. So really trying to scrape at the surface.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I definitely have some bucket list places as well.
Like what?
I'm always inspired. Like the beauty of nature is it's so helpful to me because like we're condensed in cities, we see so much development, and then to go out into this great expanse of land and realize we're just a speck. Obviously, we're growing and we're propagating throughout the earth, but there's so many undeveloped areas, and there's so much of this expanse that's still very pristine and very raw. And I think one of the most profound eras of my life was when I lived in Kauai. I lived in a glass house alone.
Oh, wow.
And the whole house overlooked this exquisite valley, river flowing through. And I just woke up every day with the sun. Fell asleep with the stars. Nice. I'd stargaze from bed. I'd be like cuddled up with my yoga bolster and all my pillows and just like literally just like looking out and seeing all the stars sparkling. And I learned so much in that era. Like I deeply respect what I learned from nature in that time.
I still find nature has a very calming effect on me. That much I've figured out. So one of my hobbies is rollerblading along the beach in Santa Monica. Like I get on the beach on my rollerblades and then you're welcome to, honestly.
That sounds so fun.
So nice. I have 2 pairs of blades or skates now because or like 1 pair of blades, 1 pair of skates so that people can come with me when they visit. Most people pick it up easily enough that they can go straight after like the first 5 minutes, which is all you need to do. And so yeah, it's so nice to do that because when you go north, what you're seeing is like the hills and Malibu and just more beach. The land kind of does this. And it has this like really, really calming effect on me. I especially like if I've had like a really stressful week, I particularly like doing it on Mondays. Mondays feel like this, like there's a lot of energy and stress and kind of tension for the week. And like Monday evening, if I go rollerblading and see the ocean and the gorgeous nature, even with the development on that nature, it's like, oh, right, okay, I'm here. It'll be fine. There's a big picture. The big picture is much bigger than I am, right? Like things will be okay.
I love that. Yeah, I'm curious if you contemplate nerdy things during your skate sessions. What are some of the interesting nerdy thoughts that you've been having recently?
Interesting. I mean, a lot of it is like ideas for my research, right? Like how can I improve upon a project? How can I use a methodology in a new way? How exactly do I explain something such that a slightly different audience will understand what it is that I'm saying, right? So yeah, I think about that a lot. Yeah. Oh, I have this is related to earlier. Another thing that my students find surprising about me, because this is another thing that why did I just think of this? I love a cozy game. Do you know the cozy game genre? So these are like video games where the whole point is you're not fighting anybody. This isn't like Halo or anything. You're literally just
Call of Duty.
Right. It's not Halo. It's not Call of Duty. It's literally you have like little characters and you're like growing crops and using the crops to bake a pie, and then you take a pie to this person and then your friendship level goes up. It's like that, but like there is no dying or pregnancy. And yeah, The Sims taught us all that, I guess, right? Like it was already stressful having a baby in The Sims where the pregnancy was like 3 days, right? But yeah, so my favorite one of these is called Disney Dreamlight Valley, and you literally just like level up your Disney character friends, right? Like that's like such a stress reliever for me also. My students find this like incredibly surprising about me. They don't think of me as like somebody who'd be into that kind of thoughtless activity.
You strike me as someone who would love Club Penguin.
What's that?
Oh my God, did I just date myself?
Oh, I have no idea.
Club
You're younger than I am, aren't you?
Yeah. Club Penguin is this game where you're just a penguin and you like roam around, and there's like different things you can do in different places. You can wear different clothes. You can collect different things. I used to game when I was a kid. I don't game anymore. I really do miss Club Penguin now that I think about it. But it's just a heartfelt game. Okay. Like just explore and exist in these like cool alternate realities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I as a kid, I played PC games, but my parents were always really focused on educational games.
Nice.
And educational books and all this stuff, right? And so it's really in adulthood that I've kind of gotten to a point of like, not everything has to be education. I do so much thinking and so much work and so many nerdy thoughts all the time, right? That like, it's totally fine to not, right? And it actually has taken me some vulnerability to like admit that to my colleagues and my students, right? That's actually a thing I do deliberately now, is to be like, that's why I told them about this cozy game, right? To actually kind of be like, it's okay, I'm a full person, right? I don't just sit there and think about linguistics all the time, despite being a professor.
Yeah, you're like, I'm Professor Zuzanna Fuchs, and I play very heartfelt, lighthearted video games.
Exactly. And read romance novels and rollerblade and all that.
I love that. So on a final note, do you think everyone should become bilingual or at least try?
Honestly, I don't think it's necessarily right for everybody. It's also very challenging for some people, right? So we know that there's a lot of individual variation, is the technical term, in terms of people's ability to pick up another language, right? If they weren't immersed in it in childhood. And so I think it's like with many things, like with college and things like that, or sports, right? If it feels like you're forcing it and it's just miserable, it's probably not giving you that advantage that you're hoping for, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's why a lot of people choose to do it. You're probably it's probably a net negative, right? But I think if it brings you joy, if you're already very good at pattern recognition, if you anticipate traveling a lot.
Is it good for the brain? Scientifically?
This is a very fraught question, actually, in the field. So it seems like, here's the one that people seem to agree on. It seems to be the case that bilingualism changes the structure of your brain in a way that is going to give you an advantage later in life when our brains start deteriorating.
Interesting.
So there's been studies that have been found that people who are going to get Alzheimer's, if they're bilingual, they'll get Alzheimer's 5 years later than people with a very similar profile who are not bilingual.
That's so interesting. Because I would think that the benefit would be a little bit more just rounding someone out. I guess, for example, when I speak Spanish, it leans into a part of my personality that I can't fully access through English. And then I've also experienced being spoken to in different languages is incredibly activating. I've learned different languages to be able to say very specific things in different languages. And it can just be such a huge catalyst at the right time in different ways. And I feel language is this tool to bridge communication. It's also this tool for self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And I've discovered a lot about myself through different languages. So it's interesting to hear that there's cognitive benefits, but I think there would also be mental health benefits as well.
Interesting. I don't know if anybody's actually studied it from the perspective of mental health, to be perfectly honest.
I bet.
Right. So I think if you have that intuition and if you feel that, then that's absolutely great. And you should pursue that. Honestly, the science of bilingualism is a fairly young field. When you think of biology, physics, medicine, these fields go back hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Lots of money flowing into them.
Yes. Linguistics, already young enough. Understanding what it means to be bilingual, super, super young as a field. And so I think perhaps in the next 10, 15, 20 years, we'll know a lot more about whether or not that's the case.
Yeah.
But right now, we're really just getting started and understanding what bilingualism can do for you.
That's amazing. Well, it's amazing to be sitting here with a pioneer in that. And it's been such a pleasure to talk to you today.
This has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.